live, going live, going live. We're live, we're live. There we are, we're live.
Oh, wait, what?
We are now live, as in broadcasting on YouTube.
So we're live now.
I haven't checked it, but yeah, I'm pretty sure we're live.
Are you sure?
All right, hang on.
Are we live?
I know I'm alive. I mean, I have a pulse. I breathe. I have thoughts, experiences.
Well, I think
Yeah.
I'm live.
Yeah, 1 second of a wee wave. There we go. 1, 2, 3. It's probably normal latency. What's that? 15
yeah.
seconds. Oh no, there we go. Yeah, we're live. We're definitely live. Hello, we're
Are
live.
you sure? Are we live yet? When are we going live?
Hello.
Ha 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 ha.
I missed this a lot.
So do I, to a point. You know,
Whose channel is this?
me.
Who are you?
I the
I'm
pig.
Star.
Me the pig.
He's the math magic pagan.
Yeah,
He's
well,
a
that's
sweet
you see
dog.
that I could have used that label earlier. There's the YouTube link in the private chat for everyone. I'm really struggling. I'd rather have 10.
Oh shit. I better fucking.
So what are we discussing now? What are we doing?
Well, I would like to know why you feel that you won, Willie, when I could say that 20
I
minutes
didn't
into
say I
it,
won.
you felt like you won.
No,
I don't think anyone won.
that's
don't
not what I
think-
said.
I don't think reasonableness was demonstrated on either side. The massive amount of circular peddling of drivel by Smokey pretty much goes towards arguing quite how unreasonable his beliefs are. But I equally didn't feel it the other way either.
I didn't say that I won. I set out to do a very specific thing.
Well, to be fair, Willie brought up a really good point about the parallels between the Bible and older stories, and Smokey just kind of glossed over it in like 2 seconds. And I feel like that's in my opinion, that's the real defeater to the Christian and Jewish religion is the, mimesis and polemics.
That's
Oh,
interesting.
yeah. There
Why would several independent recollections be dismissal rather than attributing
Because
confirmation?
they took place hundreds to thousands of years apart. They couldn't have both been witnesses to the events.
They couldn't both be Oh, I see. You're looking at this as historic. Okay.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
out of
not that
curiosity,
look at it
not that the
historic,
events
yeah, but-
happened.
if I
Not
can
that
just
the
get
events
some
Put on your listening
clarification.
glasses.
All right.
I don't think the events happened in neither the Babylonian stories nor the Bible. They're both fictional, but I'm saying they copied the story from the Babylonians in many cases and the Greeks.
They
So-
picked it up while
so-
they were in captivity.
Question.
That makes sense.
Exactly, yeah.
Question.
Yeah, during
People
the
can hear me.
Babylonian
I
exile.
know you can
All
fucking
right,
hear me.
all right, question.
Yeah, go
Is
ahead.
there anybody here on the panel that is for Smokey on their side? Because I don't want the stream to end up being a slamming thing. I would like someone to maybe possibly join.
Yeah.
I am.
I mean,
I'm
he has a
100%.
wonderful speaking voice.
Well,
No, I think that Smokey presupposes a lot of what he said.
Yes. Yeah, it comes. It's so much of what he seems to think is reasonable is where he has unknowns. It's just unknown after unknown, and you asserting an answer to that unknown.
God of the
Well,
Gets.
he did claim to have consensus on those verified unknowns.
But consensus.
But of course,
consensus-
Yeah,
out of a
that's a
billion
fallacy.
people,
I mean,
that's
an
a
appeal-
fallacy.
a
That's
pe-
what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh, I see. I misunderstood.
MathPig, did you hear me say that I won?
Towards the end, the both of you were talking, and then if you heard me retort, I said, I'm glad that you both think that, because if you're happy and he's happy, then everyone's happy.
Right. So you said that we both thought we won.
I was under the assumption from the over talking plus watching the chat plus setting things up and the context of what I give full focus to, I believe that you were both under the impression that you gave your point, were very happy, and the other person was wrong.
Right. So what I said was I accomplished what I meant to do, which was that I wanted it to be pretty clear that there's no external reason outside of the Bible for Smokey to hold the beliefs that he does. It's an add-on to his ontological and epistemological limitations.
I think
Well, if that's what you set out to do.
Kind of did that, yeah.
Well, he said he had external reasons in nature, and I asked him to talk about it, and I said that wasn't exclusive to Yahweh, and then so we eliminated that, and it went just back for Yahweh. All you have is the canon of Scripture. So all of your information has to come from that, or you would have no way to determine the God otherwise.
I would put myself backstage for Otangelo if you guys wish.
Oh, no, this is the thing, right? Me and Halsey are talking in the private chat. Does everyone see in the private chat the link that ends with 4 and Q?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, if everybody clinks that, stream shall keep going, and we will be able to hold in 10 people in.
Oh, okay.
We're going to go to Halsey's channel. Is that it?
No, we're going to go to Halsey's Hangout, but we're still going to be streaming here. Don't ask me how I'm doing it. I'm just doing it. But this way we hold 10 people in. So Ontangelo, Shadow, Andy, everybody that's here, click that link that ends in 4Q that's in the private chat.
Yeah. And then exit out of here.
And then just leave here and we should all be over there. Although Halsey hasn't added anybody yet. I'm backstage. I'm waiting for Halsey to add us all. Shadow, are you there in the other one?
I've got the YouTube up. Look, man, I had to walk away and let a beer out and get another beer. What, man? I walk away for 3 seconds and everything goes to hell.
Fucking
What?
no, we're here. We're grand. Halsey, you need to turn off the sharing. You're sharing some sort of screen. I don't know. Is there no?
Wait, was it me?
What's his
It could have
name?
been me.
The Middle Eastern guy, I believe. Brazilian. He was Brazilian, I think.
Angelo.
Antangelo, yes. God, he was so cool.
Okay. We're also streaming on Halsey's as well then. Halsey, I don't know if you're there, but you're sharing screen and nobody is being shared on it because we're being cut off. There you go.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay.
Where were we?
Where were we? Yeah, I need to do some editing. That's nearly right. Yeah, so please continue with the conversation, but now we can hold 10 people, but waiting for just Halsey to add the other people so I can see.
I have a question for Will.
Go.
Yes, sir.
Since it got cut off, so I was going to ask this. So you were trying to show Smokey that he doesn't have an extra biblical confirmation, yeah?
That would support his belief system. Yeah. There's nothing outside of, I guess what I was getting at is that there's nothing outside of the Bible or the canon of scriptures that they consider holy that point at Yahweh exclusively as being the God. If you got rid of all the writing, then there would be no Yahweh, there would be no law, there would be no chosen people, there would be no Exodus or any of that stuff. There would be the God of nature or the gods of our imagination or whatever it is for them.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And it's kind of like saying, like someone once told me they corrected me, but since I didn't understand the correction, it made no difference to me and I didn't feel corrected. Do you think that's the case tonight talking to Smokey? Do you think you actually made him have a realization?
No, not at all. It wasn't for him. It wasn't for him. It was for a couple other people who I felt needed to see that. No, you're not going to change Smokey.
If I can ask, was this based on something that was said on a past channel back and forth? And it was a.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay. So there's a wee bit of YouTube drama based in there.
Yes.
what I've noticed about Smokey, listening to him talk, is that he has a huge interest in polemics. He brings up polemics almost every time he talks. And not only do I find that ironic, but I think if you corner him and just give him the evidence of the polemics in the Bible, he'll be forced to acknowledge it. But
I'd like to see you do that.
Yeah, I would love to. I have some really good ones for the New Testament, especially. But I have a feeling he will just deny the dates of the Homeric writings being older than, you know what I mean? He'll say they came after, or he'll say the Babylonian stories came after. I feel like that's where it will go.
I think that he believes that the authors that are, you know, commonly attributed to writing them are actually the writers, and they wrote during the time period of the events rather than things being written after the fact by other people writing in their stead.
That's honestly debatable. It could have been the actual, like, some people that followed Jesus that were named Matthew like that. I'm not even disputing that, but if they were written by those people, then, you know, Matthew and Mark and Luke and John, all four of them, and Paul were literally, like, I hate to use the word plagiarism because it wasn't really plagiarism during that time. It was more of like a way to pay homage or tribute, I guess. But they were definitely taking stories from older writings, especially from Homer. Luke was taking a bunch from Virgil. Paul was taking from Plato. John was taking from Euripides, all of his writings about, you know, Dionysus and the Bacchus. Acts and Luke together as a whole were taking from Virgil.
This is I don't know. Halsey is doing a stream, and we're limited to 6. And the only reason we were here is because we could add more people, and now we can't have the people on, and I'm not in control now. And I, as much as I enjoy talking to you on Tangelo, I'd rather have certain other people on. Halsey, if we can't get the limit up to 10, I'm going to just need to go back to mine to be in charge. That's what I said. I can only come over here for 10, and I can see who's in the background. And
you're a control freak, man.
I'm not a control freak. No. If we were on Halsey's channel, that's fine. But I'm streaming to my channel. So for me,
fair enough.
For me to be, you know, in charge on my channel and see who's there and see who's not there.
Discuss. Sorry, I'll shut up.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with that. The last time I streamed was not that long ago, and it was, you know, on the paid account. This is the same account. I don't know why it's like it defaulted to some unpaid account status or something.
Do you understand, Halsey?
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. Can we stream up back to your?
Yeah, I just feel a wee bit weird because there's, you know,
I'm
not in control of the people who are coming on, and I'm happy to do that if there's 10 because everybody's on then.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
Well, hold on. Was that the real Eric? Was that the real Eric?
I think so.
It was the real Eric. Yes.
Oh man,
I know. So I want to be in control of that. So there's the link. If everyone can hit that and go straight back to where we were, it's awful. Yeah, I apologize.
Sorry, guys.
Nobody in the stream can see any difference. You know?
No, I know. Yeah.
And it's exactly the same over here. You see? It's totally fine. Nobody can see any difference. Andy's already here.
Yeah.
It's a disaster, but
that's all right. No, this is how it always goes with streamers. Like I go through debate settings all the time, and there's always some sort of technical issues like this. It's totally
it's
normal.
not a technical issue. It's not a technical issue. You know, it's just,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I know, but yeah. On Tangelo, I am very sorry. On Tangelo, I am very sorry. I just want to say this too on Tangelo because they are in the backstage. Cupcake, I have not got to be on stream with Cupcake for quite a while. I miss them very much, and we barely talk now because with what's going on. They will go to bed early because I know what Cupcake's like, and I can have you on afterwards. But at the minute, I would much rather have the banter with Cupcake, and I don't want to be rude on Tangelo, but first come, first serve. They were here first.
Oh yeah, it's good to see you, Cupcake. I'm glad. But go ahead. Hey, look, I'm out.
I'll be going to bed in like 15 minutes. So.
That's what I just said to Tangelo, and they just left. You know.
I got to get this link back out to Eric. I would love to hear what his.
Eric is backstage.
Was.
Eric is backstage.
Oh, lovely.
Zach.
Hello, all.
Hello. Welcome. Hi. How are you? How's the health? Feeling good?
I'm alright. I just finished streaming. I saw you guys. I saw you on, so I thought, fuck it, I'll join in.
Yeah, right. We've got a slot for 6. Eric, if you're happy to wait 15 minutes, Cupcake is going to go to bed, or Shadow, or if you want to bip out for 15 minutes until Cupcake goes to bed and we let Eric on. Seeing as we're going for the whole dumpster fire tonight, you know.
Hey,
Clockwork. Oh,
yeah.
you beautiful, beautiful,
Beautiful
soul.
man, Clockwork.
Perfect.
Beautiful man. Eric. Are you there, Eric?
What?
Hey,
Are
Will,
you-
get a fucking poppers, will you?
No.
Hey,
No, Eric.
another Letterkenny enthusiast.
No, Eric. Eric, no noise. Eric, no noise.
Letterkenny's the shit, man.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%.
Hello, hello.
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 What up, yo?
I'm
There we
okay,
go.
MathPig. How are you?
Okay, right. 2 seconds. I'm going to put Willie in charge. Willie, after Eric's introduction of himself for saying hello, but you're in charge. I'll be back in a second.
Go ahead, Eric.
You guys know me. I'm just Eric. But I saw the title. Reasonable belief. And yeah, there's very good reason to believe, but I'll wait for MathPig.
Of course there isn't.
Oh.
I'd love to hear why.
Okay,
Well, God
Eric,
is
this
the
is the
only
point. If I
alternative.
can, Eric, if this is the point, the reason I asked you to do an introduction before I left is there is an awful lot of new subscribers came down tonight. They were following over from a debate I hosted. They wanted to see the people, and there was a few people who came in tonight who are new. So if you could say hello and introduce yourself, because I am very glad that there is now a Christian on panel. I didn't like doing an after party between a Christian and a, shout at me if you want, atheist, and not having a Christian on the panel for the after party. So thank you for coming in.
Well, it's a pleasure. Thank you. But if you wanted to really say something about myself, I'm Eric. I'm a Christian. I've been a Christian most of my life, although I've been back and forth, to be fair and honest, full disclosure. And, but, you know, I believe that there's very strong, good reasons to actually not just believe in a God, but know that there has to be a God. There has to be.
Has to be. Now,
Why does there have to be?
Why does there have to be? Because so far, I mean, if we're really going to go with the very best available science, it's impossible that life began on its own from everything that we know.
That's not what
If
science
you-
says in the
That's just
slightest.
an assertion to something.
If
we
you
don't
if
know.
you'll follow me for just a moment,
That's not what science says in the slightest.
no.
If
We're
you'll
going
follow
to
me
try
for
and
just
we're going
a
to try and maintain. I'm not going to say we're going to maintain the 2-minute rule that we had during the debate, because that was a fucking stupid idea, Willie. But let's have a cordial conversation. Let Eric get his point out. If he rambles, we'll shut him down, and then we'll go back
Thank
and
you.
forth.
thank you.
So has
First of all-
I didn't even hear. Go on ahead, Eric. Finish your point.
First of all, let me just say that all life is cellular. Okay, without a cell, there is no life. And every cell,
No, that's purely
every-
a definitional thing.
every cell that exists began as a live cell. Okay, every cell,
Okay, you
Begin as
said
a
every
life.
cell, live cell. Moving on.
and there is no life without a cell. The unfortunate thing is your current theory, which regards abiogenesis, is that evidently sometime through the ages, a cell just randomly fell together, or a bunch of them, a population, as the story goes, randomly formed, and then they began to they somehow woke up.
Okay,
and
can I
began-
make an assumption? I'm going to interrupt. Sorry, you've had some time. I'm going to go with the assumption that you are, against evolution and this, that, and the other, and I'm going to pass it
No,
over.
no. Let me just say. I mean, I'm putting
No,
this
no,
in a
no, no,
nutshell
no,
for you.
Eric. No. I did say
I'm
if you
putting
start
this in
to
a
rant
nutshell
on,
for you.
if you started to rant on, I would step in. And you said a cell is a cell is a cell is a cell is a cell. So I'm going to give Cupcake a chance to retort with assumptions. If they make any wrong assumptions, I will allow you to correct that. But not correct and don't interrupt. I'm going to give them the same
Okay.
time. Cupcake.
Okay, go right ahead.
Right, very quickly. So so because we don't know the exact mechanism of something, you're just going to assert something.
No,
That's seems to be
No.
what we've done. Because we don't know it. This is what we're dealing with the
No.
reasonableness of it. And
That's not my story.
it's
My story is
you're
you're hanging on in blind faith to something that has failed over and over and over and over
I'm
and
not holding
over
on
and
to
over
anything.
again.
I'm
Eric, let
literally
him,
saying I
Eric,
don't
let them
know.
finish. Eric, let them finish.
I'm literally saying I don't know. You're the one that's making an assertion here.
Well, an atheist has to
Nope.
assume
No,
that,
No.
that
We-
life
we-
began without a God,
no.
because there's
I
obviously
mean, yeah, we
life
do.
here.
You
No,
can't
Okay.
say no to that, Cupcake. Yeah, we do assume that life began without a
No,
God.
I don't know. Not all atheists assume that, unfortunately.
You
Well, then
see,
you're not an atheist, then.
Oh, now there's three
now you're
people
coming up
talking.
with a ridiculous proposition.
Yeah, you're not an atheist if you think a God exists.
No. The issue is whether or not you. The issue is whether you are asserting that it is possible with or without that you know that the answer here. Right?
No,
And
all I'm saying is
you're not saying that.
you have
Eric, let them
Sorry.
finish their point, and then after Eric responds, I'd like to bounce over to Andy. Andy is politely asking, can they wait their turn? So I'm going to let them after Cupcake and Eric, then Andy.
Right,
Hey,
the
I'll
point
just
is-
make this easy, MathPig. Just let me know when it's my turn to speak, and I'll be quiet until then. Bye.
Sorry. Right. My point is not. I feel to answer that one too. The point is not that we necessarily know something. It's whether or not it's reasonable to assert something in terms of something we don't know. Now, I agree with you that most atheists would turn around and say, but what is you? I'm just going to jump around here. The point is you end up at the debate as to what is an atheist. But in terms of what they believe, most of them don't shit. Most atheists don't give a shit where life came from. So to turn around and say it's an atheist position is absurd. The fact that most vocal atheists might that tend to talk about this stuff tend to understand the science and can explain it. I've got absolutely no problem doing that. But the debate isn't really about whether or not how life began. The debate is whether or not it's reasonable. Even when you say that that all life has a cell, that's just definitional by us. We've created that definition of life. There are precursors to cells that fit other definitions of life. We have picked an arbitrary line, and you are going with that. So, how you get to you don't know how that happened, we don't know how that happened, so it must have been a god. Is not a really reasonable argument.
Eric?
You know? Yeah, and I'm trying to get to reasonableness without trying to.
Oh, no,
explain
I
the
think you
science.
made your point. I think you made your point. You're like me. You'll ramble on unless someone jumps in.
No,
I'm
I
jumping in
will.
and saying, Eric, respond if you're wishing
Okay.
to.
Thank you. So, Cupcake's position is that he hasn't even thought through his own worldview.
No, I
But
know.
that-
what
don't
my
find-
worldview
no,
is.
I don't find that to be
I'm going to jump in. I'm going to jump in, and you are being, they broke down something, and you're now telling Cupcake what they think. You should ask a question.
Yeah, well, basically.
Ask a question. Mate, dude, make the statement in a fucking implication way. Ask the question. Be the person you are and do that, but at least do it in a sneaky, implicated way. You must believe this, or you think this, or do you believe that is even better? Questions are better. Don't make statements about someone else that you don't know.
Well, to say that an atheist, it doesn't matter, their worldview doesn't matter to an atheist. They're not concerned about how life began. I'm going to say, if you're not concerned about how life began, it's probably because you know that's the weak point in your philosophy. And you can't, when we look at the tests, the things that we've tried to do over and over again, they've tried to create life. They've tried to create living cells, and they just can't do it. It doesn't happen in the laboratory. It doesn't happen in nature.
It does.
Again, wait. Sorry, I've got to be really rude here. You're not answering my point. I literally was trying to not talk about the science.
That's what.
No.
That's not the question. I am talking about the science. I saw that the question here is: Is it reasonable to believe in a God? I'm telling you why it's reasonable for me to believe in a God. That's just
you don't
number one.
understand the science, apparently.
That's just number one. Science
People,
tells me that
people, sell. Don't understand science. Andy, have you something along this topic, a tangent or whatever? I know you have a question for Eric. Also, we have another person in the backstage, Ez Philosophy. I do believe that Ez Philosophy, if not 100% agrees with Eric, definitely disagrees with most of the science and evolution and stuff like that. I'm sorry, I'm speaking for you. I'm trying to get you a spot to speak for yourself. But if anyone, cupcakes going now in 10-15 minutes, if you're happy to wait, that would be good, because we would have two people then on the panel that believe similar things. They can wait. Brilliant. Happy days. Hey, Andy, even your turn.
Okay. Hello, A's Philosophy, by the way. A's a friend of mine. I love him. Okay, so I don't really have much of an argument against a God, because I think that there could be a God, and it's a plausible assertion. I think there are good reasons for a God, but in particular, I think that the Christian God, or even more specifically, Jesus and the storyline behind Jesus, I think we have really good reasons to doubt those stories.
Yeah, we do. I've literally just been reading through the Bible on my stream. I'm talking about how almost the entirety of chapters 1 through 4 of Genesis are stolen from Mesopotamian myths because they couldn't make their own. And there's so many ways we can disprove Christianity. It's insane. So yeah, you want to say, hey, maybe there might be a deistic God? I ain't gonna argue. There might be a deistic God, but I can argue the shit out of a Christian and Judeo-Christian God.
Yeah, I agree in part. Oh, go ahead.
Can I address Zach?
Yes.
Zach, I understand your point, but what people fail to understand that bring this point forward is this. Abraham came from Mesopotamia. Abraham was born in Mesopotamia and lived in Mesopotamia. His forefathers were from Mesopotamia. So, of course, maybe it's not impossible to believe that all of this stuff came from something further back. This story came from further back. I submit it came through Noah and through Enoch, Noah, and on down the line.
Yeah, but even Noah's
and then
story,
by the time you get to Mesopotamia, time you get to Mesopotamia, they're telling the same story that was given to them.
What are you on about? Mesopotamia and Assyria and Sumer existed 2,000 years before even the earliest mention of Hebrews.
Yeah.
The stories were way older. The Mesopotamian stories are way older, and when we see those parallels that are that specific between the Mesopotamian stories and the Christian stories, hang on, just let me finish really quick.
They're not way those parallels. They're not way over. Considered Abraham.
Yeah, just let me finish really quick. I won't be long. Just when we see parallels, they are way older, by the way, and we know that for a fact. That they're hundreds to thousands of years older than the stories that are written in the Bible, and that we can definitely go down that road. But the stories are so similar, and it's so clearly copied that it's a matter of whoever has the older story is the one that has the only potential of being the true story. Not that I think any of them are true stories. It's all mythology that spawned off of stories about celestial bodies in the skies that got anthropomorphized into people over time, and then those people got worshipped as gods. But none of these stories have any. The origin of these stories goes back to Babylon. It goes back to Akkad. It goes back to Samaria, and it branched out from there. And that's what all of the evidence shows. I mean, there's really good arguments for that.
If I can, before Zach responds. Andy, would you like to introduce A's Philosophy? I'd like them to say hello. They've just got a wee slot on the panel, So
yes, A's Philosophy is the most logical Christian that I've ever spoken to. I love him like a brother, and I value everything that he has to say. And he's the best He's the best representation of the Christian religion that you could hope for. Genuinely,
logical Christian, isn't that an oxymoron? Just
Yeah, thank you for that, Andy. That's amazing. I was going to say that's not a very high standard to meet, though. So I'm not sure how much that's saying.
No,
I think
have
it's
to
kind of an
say,
oxymoron that you would.
Andy, I met Andy through his philosophy one time. Me and Ez were trying to have a conversation, and everybody was talking over us. So we just went to the private chat and was like, "Dude, you want to set up a stream? We go talk." Met Ez through there, and Andy was decent enough and respected me enough to come over and has joined a few panels. But it's good to get a chance to talk to you. I know our time zones don't match up. What are you, Pacific time? Is it or?
I'm Eastern, actually. So
Oh,
I'm
you're
not too-
Eastern.
that's,
Yeah, well, that's not
yeah.
too bad. At the minute, you're only,
No.
what, 5 hours behind or so. But I appreciate
5, I
you
think.
joining. I always like...
Guys, with all due respect, I would point out, if you don't mind, that you're laying applause on somebody that most Christians don't even accept as a Christian, but they use philosophy.
I really
Because
don't care.
he doesn't believe most of the Bible. He just tosses it out.
To be
don't
fair,
worry.
man, Eric, you should
A
know...
Christian is a follower of Christ.
You should
a
know-
follower
Thank you,
of
Andy.
Christ.
first bit of the
Not-
Bible that's true.
Eric, you should know specific, and Zach's over in the UK as well. Most people over here don't take it as serious as what the Christians on YouTube do. Obviously, with being on YouTube, it comes with a personality and an idea and a want for people to hear your thoughts and you thinking that you're right. But like, I was raised by a Christian woman that doesn't go to church, that he doesn't believe in lots of stuff, and me and her, and that's my mother. Lots of respect. Pork Granny's in the chat. I would consider her a Christian, even though she would probably more align with his philosophy than you. You know, people want
Well,
to.
I'm just saying, if you don't believe the Bible, it's hard to label yourself as a Christian.
You don't need to believe in the
Well,
Bible.
then-
To be a
What's the first
Christian.
bit of the Bible you like that? What's the first bit of the Bible that's true?
Oh, I love. Can we not let the fucker describe himself? Hello, talk about yourself,
Hey,
because you're here.
yeah. I don't want to introduce myself because there was a good conversation going, but yes, I'm someone who thinks that the Bible is not what defines Christianity in its entirety and its current form. If you're gonna say that you're not a Christian if you don't accept the Bible, well, then there were 0 Christians for decades after Christ, because none of the New Testament, anyways, had been written.
That's a
until
very
decades after
logical thing to
Christ.
say.
So-
And actually, the formation of the
Wow.
Bible wasn't actually codified till like 300 years later.
Right, exactly. So there were literally centuries went by after the time of Christ before the so-called Bible was compiled by the early Catholic Church. So This
Sorry,
is-
but that's just
Well-
showing a little bit of ignorance about the manuscripts. We've
Well,
got
yeah,
manuscripts
have
that
you
go
ever
back to
heard-
the
That's
Or
just
second
I would be
third.
very
You've got-
interested. I would be very interested to hear, because I actually brought A on because I believed my assumption, which made clearly an ass out of me, was that A's understanding of evolution and genetics to a certain point would have the same presupposition that Eric's does. And I brought A on to be on Eric's side. Eric has proclaimed that they're not friends, obviously. So I would be
I'm just
interested
saying,
to see a wee back and forth.
Internecine warfare.
I would be
If he
interested to
wants-
see a
if
wee
he
back
wants
and
to
forth
argue it,
between
it's fine.
A
I don't
and
care.
Eric. So you could clarify
Well,
for me where my assumption was wrong, you know?
Well, I do not believe in evolution or materialistic, naturalistic explanations of life. I do believe a God is necessary for that. So Eric and I agree on that. And I do claim to be a Christian, and I'm not a Christian according to Eric's definition, but I think according to the ultimate definition of what's a Christian, Andy, the atheist / skeptic, actually got it right. A Christian is a follower of Christ. So Eric, I think you can learn something from Andy there, and I guess I'll end it there for now.
Well, I don't label you either way. I call you questionable. Judging what you are is between you and God.
Eric?
I'm just making a point here. When you laud your praises on A, you're lauding your praises on somebody that disbelieves most of the Bible. And
I need a point of clarification. This is purely for my brain and understanding. When you say I lay my praises on A, or if Andy lays his praises on A, on the stream, all people have done is say nice things about their friends. Actually point
that's
out,
okay. Absolutely.
But what do you mean by praise? Like, with praise, you're giving power to someone. You're this to the person about. No.
Well,
All that's
I mean,
happening
with
here
the
is
comments,
All that's happening here is people are being respectful.
Yeah, I was just talking about the comments about he's the most unhypocritical Christian or whatever the wording was used
Logical.
there. Yeah, most logical. Well,
Well,
you're
my
calling,
mother would agree with
with
most of
me-
them, and to be fair, she raised a fucking complicated mess that doesn't really believe in a god. So yeah, you know, his
I
feeling
would
is he
say
might
that-
have kids that don't believe.
I would say what would be logical is that if you're going to be a Muslim, you would believe the Quran. If you're going to be a Christian, you'd believe the Bible.
Okay, I'm going to
So
ask a
the
question
thing
of
is
her.
If you're going to be
Bible
a
you believe.
Hindu, you're going to believe the Maha, whatever
Well,
it is.
There was about 4
That-
people unmuted there. Shadow has put himself backstage, so I will put the floor to Shadow and be nice to them to give them a point. They also unmuted. Have you something you'd like to ask, Eric?
Well, I mean, I knew this was going to happen. I saw it coming as soon as you let that guy up. But yeah, hey, Eric, what proof do you have to prove to me beyond the shadow of a shadow Rex doubt that the Bible is the Word of God? Give me something, anything.
Well, that's more of a personal thing.
No, it's a
I'm proving to
question.
myself.
It's a question that you've just dodged.
Now,
Well, that's a
I'm not
personal
dodging
thing
you.
for me because
not
you know I
dodging you.
can't give you like actual proof
I'm
that
not dodging
anything
you,
the Bible
dude.
says is true.
I'm not dodging you. I'm just telling you it's not on me to prove to you
Uh-huh.
anything. Okay. Now, what I
You're
can
making
prove,
the claim.
what I
You're
can
making the
prove is
claim.
this. What I can prove is this.
Uh-huh.
Cells don't naturally form.
Are you sure
Neither
about
can
that?
they. Neither can they. Yes, I'm absolutely sure.
Are you absolutely sure that it's scientifically
abs-
proven?
Yes. Scientists have
okay.
tried over and over and over and
Okay,
over.
that's
and
not
over
going to.
again.
Okay,
Fair
this
enough. Hey, look,
conversation
run with
isn't going to
that.
go
Run with
anywhere.
that.
Shadow's
Okay.
going to tell you that you're wrong. You're going to say God. Andy has one
Well, all he
question.
has to do.
Fair enough.
all
It's going to
Shadow
be a
has to
circular
do is-
argument, and to be fair, I get bored very quickly with the same conversations round
Okay.
in circles.
Well,
Andy
MathPig,
has a
let me just
question
put
for
this-
Eric. I would be very interested to hear the most logical Christian in the world's best friend's question for the other Christian.
Okay. If I could just make a comment to you then, MathPig.
Go for it.
All I'm saying is, if he wants to say that we have made a cell or we can make cells, pull up that paperwork.
Okay.
Because we haven't.
Okay, that's
Then we
good.
don't.
Yeah, I'll get it now.
Zach
So-
will do that while Andy asks the question.
I mean,
All
it's
right,
not fully created cells, but yeah.
I just wanted to ask Eric. So, if a Christian believes every single word of the Bible is true, right? And then they come across something that causes them to doubt just one single claim in the Bible, but they still accept the rest of it as true, and they think that the claim doesn't change, you know, the piece of the Bible that they've come to realize wasn't true. They don't think that piece that they've now rejected compromises their faith in God or their belief in Jesus being divine and the Son of God or heaven or hell or the afterlife or any of that. And so I guess if they let one go of one belief, just one single thing about the Bible, but believe all of the important stuff still, would they still be considered a Christian?
Well, I don't know. I would be afraid to wager either way. I'm not their judge. God is. But I will say this. Once you begin doubting, that's a very slippery slope. Because, you know, what happened with Dave's philosophy, for instance, and I'm not judging the dude. I'm really not. But there had to start off with that first doubt.
Attack the
And then
argument,
that
not the
first
person.
doubt
I'm just saying
mushroomed.
this. If it goes any further and you're attacking the person and not the argument, then I'll mute you and we'll stop. But attack the argument, not the person.
I'm not attacking Abe.
No, I want to hear what happened to me. I want to hear what happened to
I'm
me.
just
Tell
saying.
me.
I'm just saying. Once you make that first concession, once you not just entertain that first doubt, but embrace it, then it's not very long before you find another thing you're going to doubt and another, before until you know it, like Abe's philosophy, you've thrown out most of the books of the Bible. So, I think it's a very slippery slope. My experience with the scripture has been this. Anytime that I thought I found a contradiction The thought that I entertained was that my take on one or more scriptures is wrong, and that I am the problem with this misunderstanding. And so that's how I've approached my doctrine, and I've found out that that's caused me to change many of the things I used to believe, because the churches I was in would say one thing, for instance, pre-tribulation rapture, but the Bible would tell me something else. For instance, Matthew 24:29 says immediately after the
No
tribulation.
Bible study. Done that already.
Yeah. Right. Only saying that, when I run across what I thought was a contradiction, I assumed that I had it wrong, and I was right. I did have it wrong. And when I went on and corrected myself, I allowed the Bible to correct me. So now I have my rapture doctrines down. There will be a rapture, but we're told it's at the very end of the tribulation period. That's just an example.
Hopefully.
Okay, I've read through one of the papers. Zach, the first paper, actually, the New Scientist one. The New Scientist one doesn't really strengthen your... I can see what Zach... I know what Eric's going to say because I know Eric, right?
It's one of the just first ones I collect.
I know. I fucking clicked it. It's not great, but we'll use it anyway because I can argue for it, right? It says that they created...
actually a study.
They created cells and they did divide, and it was a completely synthetic created cell. It did divide. It didn't divide equally or properly, and there was some problems with it. But through the problems, they realized out of the 400 and something genes that they used, there was 5 that they didn't realize were as important as what they were actually watching it. So the next set, I guarantee you, were probably going to be better. This is what science is. The second one, a partially self-generating synthetic cell. I've just brought it up as we brought it up, but even if we haven't created one little life organism right now, the basic blocks are there. We have created one cell. We have created that synthetic cell. So this statement, cell has been created, done. It's been done in the lab.
This doesn't say that they've created life. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Eric,
I literally said,
Eric,
kind of.
You ask us for evidence. You ask us for evidence, but you don't have to give us any evidence.
I'm asking if I can. If I can. Eric, you said in this they don't describe creating life. Okay, it's a newspaper, and the newspaper article says artificial life made in lab. That's an article title. I'm not going to call that as quoting. We could go look at the paper. But my most important thing I want to know from you is, what do you define as life? Do you consider bacteria life? Like, what is your definition of life?
I accept the scientific definition of life.
Okay, I accept the fucking flat earther's opinion of what the earth is. I don't know what it is.
No, there is no solid definition of life. That's just false.
I'm asking you, Eric, use your words as best as you understand it, what you think a creature of life is like. What does it take? 6 steps, 7 steps, these little ticks. Under your understanding, Eric, I would like you to explain that to the other 5 people on the panel.
Well, in the first place, it's got to be a living cell. Period.
What defines a living cell?
Is a virus alive? Is a virus one?
No. Sorry. That's fucking dude. Seriously. What defines a living cell? What defines living life? And your thing is, it must be a living cell. You're literally creating a fucking thing inside itself. Like, what defines life? Must replicate itself. Must consume energy. Things like this. This is what I'm looking for. You can't say a living thing is a living thing.
Yeah, it's like saying the sun is the...
Go on ahead, Eric.
Well, you guys asked me. You guys are asking me in the same breath.
So we're asking you for an answer we can understand, not a circular answer.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. You guys keep asking me, is a virus life?
I never asked you that. I asked you to define what you consider to be a being of life.
Zach asked me. Is this how it's going to be?
I think it's a decent question to ask, because because some scientists say viruses are in fact alive because they show some signs of life.
Some scientists do. I don't give a fuck right now what scientists do. I want to hear the words out of Eric's mouth, what Eric believes.
Look, guys, if
I
it's
want
gonna
to
be
listen
like
to
this,
Eric.
look,
I want to give the floor
I
to
have
Eric.
a wife that doesn't want to listen to this kind of language, guys.
Well, I do, and I'm in
I don't
charge,
blame
and
her.
Zach is decent enough to give
Number
me the floor.
Number two, I came up here in good conscience, expecting to be given an opportunity to.
I'm trying to give you the floor. I'm trying to give you.
No, you're trying to corner me into something that I'm not doing.
No, I just want you to
Now,
give an answer.
You asked me, Zach asked me, is a virus life? And I'm telling you no, and I'm telling you why. Most
Why won't you answer my question first? But okay.
He is answering your question.
Most scientists disagree that viruses are life. One of the biggest reasons is because it's not contained in a membrane that we call a cell. And then they give you another 3 or 4 reasons that off the top of my head, I forget what they are. Pardon me for that.
And you forget a lot of shit right off the top of your head. But go ahead.
So this other now,
Can I try to be
lot of
helpful, Eric?
problems. There's a lot of problems with life, and I want to tell you what they are. And this right here,
dude, if I'm going to give you the floor, no,
Holy
seriously,
shit.
if I'm going to give you the floor, everybody can shut the fuck up. If I'm going to give you the floor, Eric, to talk back, I want you to take this time to answer my question, okay? And you can't say a living life is a life that lives. That is circular, okay? That's the only reason I jumped in. I want to know by steps, by things, little boxes that you can tick. I want to know what you believe. And if I'm going to give you the floor, I want you to answer that question.
So what's your question?
What do you define as life? What are the requirements for something to be defined as life by your understanding and your beliefs?
It's got to have a way to multiply. It's got to have a metabolism. It's got to be able to create its own energy. It's got to have its own energy. And it has to be encapsulated inside a cell. Okay. And that's your problem. Now, let me explain the 2 big problems you've got with cells here. In the first place, you have to have the ability to watch a cell, or the cells can create themselves. They have to be self-creating, and that doesn't happen. In the second place, then you have to have the ability to go from a single-celled organism to a multi-celled organism by means of mitosis. And that doesn't happen either. If you have a single-celled organism, it divides into a single-celled organism only. It never divides into a multicellular organism. And yet we have multicellular organisms. So you don't have step 1 of abiogenesis, and you don't have step 1 of evolution.
Okay,
cells
I would be
do
under.
not
Okay,
self-form,
okay.
nor do they reproduce a multicellular organism.
Okay, I would be under
Now,
the understanding.
When it comes to
you're just not going to let me respond to you. You're going to gish gallop.
One last point.
Oh, okay. Well, if you give too many points, then I forget all the other points. But go on ahead. This is what's called gish galloping. But go on ahead.
No, it's not. It's giving you an honest answer, dude. So, there are papers that will claim that they have created a multicellular organism from a single cell organism. And that is not true. What they have done, they have found that single cells can colonize. But what this is only an example of a single cell splitting into 2 cells, and then splitting again into 2 cells, and then splitting again into 2 cells. But they don't leave each other. They colonize together. But it's not a multicellular organism the way you and I are multicellular organisms. They're just a bunch of single-cell organisms that are living together.
No,
so
I
those
can
are my
understand.
points.
Now, I'm going to put forth something to you, and this is just something that I want you to think about. And then I'm going to bounce over to A, and I'm going to ask A what they define as life as a very logical Christian who doesn't believe in evolution. So their answer could be interesting, right? If you had a group of these single cell organisms and they always like, this one's going to replicate over here in the group and this one's going to replicate down here in the group because they're in a group. Given long enough time, do you think that that little group over there could grow longer probes to look out? They could evolve in that. They're still single cell organisms growing out in that. Then you have a little thing over here doing something similar over time. What you're missing out on is time. Okay? Things can go together. I'm going to ramble.
Granite.
Your turn. Could you describe to us what you define as the necessary requirements for life?
Are you speaking to Eric or to me?
No, Eric's done his spiel. He's had a bit.
Oh.
I tried to retort, lost my trail of thought, but I'm bouncing it to you because I also want to know,
Right.
as a other person on the panel who doesn't agree with evolution foundationally, what is your definition and definements of what is required for life?
Well, I do think Eric did a pretty good job. I think that for something to be living, though, there's a dichotomy between inanimate matter and a living being, and I think what's fundamental, and this wouldn't be provable scientifically, but a living thing has to have something akin to a will or a consciousness to engage in goal-oriented processes. So,
if I can ask, sorry to interrupt, but something to be described as alive under your definition must have a conscience or a drive to do something. Now, I consider them to be different.
Alive, then.
I consider them to be, and that's what I'm saying. I consider a drive to do something could be just a light sensor telling you to go that way for food. There's no conscience there. So that drive is different. I find a problem with using a drive and consciousness.
I think it has to have the ability to choose between X or Y at a given moment in time. So even if you look at a single cell bacteria, they do appear to be making decisions.
I'll give you that. It's a decision based on a very, very simple chemical reaction, and it's in my opinion, it's chemically driven. It's not a choice.
Yes, it is.
No, it
well,
isn't. It doesn't have a mind. It's a cell.
I agree. It's the same thing. That's exactly what humans do. We're just a very much more complex version of that. We're just chemical reactions, just like cells.
If you're talking a single cell bacteria and there's light above and no light above, it will know whether there's light above or not light above due to a chemical reaction.
Stimuli.
It doesn't know anything. It just
don't say it's consciousness. No, I don't say it's consciousness. I say it's a chemically driven decision.
Well, here's the problem I have with that.
Decision.
You have a problem with the word decision.
Yeah, I have a problem with saying that it is simply chemistry, because the laws of nature are mechanistic.
Are they?
And I believe they are. I believe that the energy interacts, and gravity and electromagnetic, it all interacts in a very mechanistic, formulaic manner. But
mechanistic, formulaic, what?
A formulaic manner, as in you can predict exactly what it's going to do mathematically based on the initial input. So
okay, so in that statement, I'm taking the implication that you're putting faith to a certain degree what the science says and what the math predicts.
Fair enough.
I think that
it's a question. Sorry, am I right in making that assumption that you're putting a certain amount of faith in the science and mathematics?
Well, yeah. I'm just defining what the science would say about how these. If you're going to say it's chemistry and physics that are making these things, these organisms do what they do
on a single cell level,
I would be agreeing with science.
Yeah, well, I think that there has to be something more. I think when you observe them. When you observe these organisms, something more is going on. Science is too limited to
what
explain
is the
what we're
something
observing.
more? What is the something
we know
more?
How brains work.
Yeah, what is the something more that a single cell organism is doing when it has a chemically driven thing? So I don't say decision and freak outside.
There is essentially some aspect of these organisms that is basically violating the mechanistic laws of nature in order to allow them to move this way or that way to respond to the stimuli.
I don't think so. I would disagree with that.
Flagellum, and that's against nature. Am I misunderstanding?
No, because the flagellum is if the organism senses that it needs to go this way or that, it's not just being controlled by the force. It's literally looks like it's saying like, oh, I need to go that way. Then the flagellum orients the creature to go in that direction as part of a decision. Apparently,
right. That's you putting the idea of a human mind on a cell. That's not how cells
the
work.
Exact reason that I used the word decision to see that if A anthropomorphized this thing, It is chemically driven. The word decision implies consciousness. There is no consciousness. It is a chemically driven thing.
Can I make a point to A's point?
It disagrees with him just for shits and giggles. I'll let you 30 seconds.
Well, we look at lions. Lions obviously have a.
We're talking single cell organisms. That's a tangent.
I know.
No.
I'm using this as an analogy. But we watch lions and they plan their hunt many times and they work together. Now, when we watch single celled organisms like an amoeba, they hunt and they appear to be planning.
Zach, I'm smoking joints. Do that bong proud.
Well, they do. Guys, if you don't want to listen.
No, I am.
Okay.
I was making a comment to Zach. I just feel that you're doing the same thing that you did. So, but go on ahead. I'm just being honest with you.
Well, no, I'm just pointing out that they appear to hunt and they appear to think as they hunt.
No,
and
they don't.
Their prey also appears to think as they're trying to escape.
You don't. You're
Paramecia.
missing out the fundamentals of things like osmosis and diffusion. These things only look like they're doing that because they are.
How do you know
there
that?
Are certain receptors
science.
and the outer lipid layers on the cell wall that react to.
How do you know they just
of
appear
chemicals
to do
in the
this?
place they're in? So when they detect through ionic bonds and shit like that, and what's with electrons, into quantum entanglement and shit. They go towards the areas of
now you're
higher
sounding like
concentration.
How do you know that they just appear to think? That they don't really
Hey,
think?
look, Math Pig, I can't say shit, so just leave me backstage, okay?
No,
These two
everybody's
are
waiting
having
their
a
turn.
fucking-
Andy waited their turn. Zach
Well,
waited.
they're having a knockdown drag out. So yeah,
This
fair
isn't
enough.
a knockdown drag out. This is just
The
a
fucking
discussion.
ain't.
They'll just want to hear my answer from A. You know, I don't think they got to flush it out completely. If you want, see, Clockwork or Shadow, you're sitting backstage, so I'm going to add you again because you do want to be here. So, like, if you can't control yourself, that's okay. I'll leave you backstage, but like, you're welcome to join and just just want
I
A
just
to
want to take. I just want to take a second to say I actually have to leave now.
You motherfucker!
I'm sorry, but I really
Don't
do have
leave
to
us
go
with
right now.
Eric.
I apologize for that sincerely, but
No
maybe I'll
worries.
be able to find something in the future.
I
All right.
am glad that we got to hang out. I am glad that we did get to do a wee stream together. To be fair, Fabio's in the chat. I wouldn't mind Fabio coming in. So that opens up a slot for others. So, I appreciate you falling on the sword for life. I appreciate you
Thank you for
coming
having
in.
me.
And everybody who watched tonight, we've got like 20 people watching. I really appreciate you all coming in and didn't even let me say fuck you bye, right? Fuck you bye.
So, you want to ask how we know that these cells aren't thinking? So when we look at brains and we know that they're thinking because brains use the endocrine system and flood them with different endorphins and stuff like that affect mood and make them think certain things. Also, the brain takes in certain stimuli through the nervous system, through electronic impulses that then make electric impulses fire through neurons and synapses and glial cells
Dude,
that
you're
make this
so
all
high.
happen, right? And considering that a cell has none of these because we need multiple cells to have a nervous system and an endocrine system and all these things, then we can know that actually it isn't thinking, because when we talk about the thinking part of a cell, we're talking about the mitochondrial DNA, and all the mitochondrial DNA is doing is making sure that the certain fucking certain chemical bonds and stuff are the way they are supposed to be and not defective, you see? Because that's how you get cancer, is when the mitochondrial DNA fucks up and then changes the kind of cell. You see, that's all it does. It doesn't think. It doesn't have any of those processes because it's not able.
I think you mean mRNA because mitochondrial DNA is the powerhouse of the cell, but you're pretty high. I heard you hitting that bong hard. You're true in the words that you're using. You're just using the wrong words. Dude, I'm going to Amsterdam like at the end of the month. Flights are dirt cheap. They're like 13 fucking euro, man. All right? Fly out and let's hang out in Amsterdam. I'm there for like 6 days.
I can't.
Sneak in. I'll let you sleep in the bath. I'll give you a duvet and you can sleep in the bath in the hotel room. Like, just get a flight over. Like, on the fuck.
My immigration says nay, mate.
if
I
you
can't
don't
read.
mind me addressing Zach's point real quick,
Go for
Yeah,
it,
go
man.
on.
I appreciate you asking.
thank you. Zach, it seems to me that you're making an assumption there that you have no idea at all that there's another, whether or not there is another way of thinking, another alternative way, other than a brain. You're
Oh,
assuming to know.
you mean like the certain plant species that actually communicate through pheromones in the air? There's also anemones that do that. There is different ways of having brains and communicating, but cells don't have any of them because all the ways you're talking about take multiple cells to do that fact.
No, you're missing my
Unmuted,
point.
Andy unmuted, so I just want to make Eric finish your point and retort to Zach, but Andy's been quiet for a while and he just unmuted, so I'd like to give them a point. They clearly have a point to make.
Sure. You're just
Take your
missing my
time.
point.
Take your time.
You're assuming that it takes a brain to think. And when it goes to the microorganisms, they obviously don't have a brain, but they obviously appear to think because they do hunt and they do try to escape and they do find food and metabolize and all of this. So you're just assuming, you're making this assumption.
No. He's basing if I can, and I'll assume what Zach's doing. Zach is basing his information on the fact that these things happen because something sees light and moves towards it if light is beneficial. The fact that if light was not beneficial and it moved towards light, guess what? It would fucking die out. We wouldn't see any evidence of it because it would be gone. You know,
well, I'm not really talking about that, to be fair, man.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I
I'm
want to
talking
just.
about the
Andy had a
hunting.
point. Andy had a point. You made yours, and I did say that I would give Andy the floor
That's
afterwards.
fine.
I was trying to.
Go right ahead. I apologize.
No, you don't have to apologize. That's fine. I'm just trying to do my job as high as I can. Oh, fuck me. Now Andy goes quiet.
I was talking. I forgot I was muted. I'm sorry.
You're. It's fine. Nobody needs to apologize on here except for calling people names and being generally ignorant. Yous are all apologizing for the politeness. I think this is the most polite I've ever seen Eric ever. And like there is, Eric, I don't know if you remember or not. I don't know if you remember or not, Eric, but I read something in the private chat that you did on me one time. We were on a Christian channel. You were having a very bad day and you did a thing. And it's like the fact that you did that and I still let you on, you should consider yourself very lucky. Anyway. Andy,
I don't recall what that was, but if I offended you, I'm sorry.
There was a gun involved. Anyway, Andy, go on ahead.
All right. And this is a total subject change back to the Christian scripture, and I'm sorry for that, but that's just.
Oh no,
my
you're doing
area
the
of-
moderating that I should be doing. Go on ahead.
It's my area of focus is typically the scriptural points, and I just wanted to bring this up to Eric and see maybe what you thought of it. Okay, so this is an example of the Gospels, from what I can tell, are copying from Homeric writings. And Homer wrote his writings, obviously, 700 years before the Gospels were written. They're certainly older. 800 years, actually, before the Gospels were written. 700 years before Christ. But anyway, this is an example of what I see as the Gospels copying from the Homeric epics. All right, so in Mark, I'm sure you're familiar with the Gerasene demoniac story where they sail to the land of the Gerasenes. Okay.
Yes.
So this is a list of some parallels that those two stories, the one story being the Gerasene demoniac story from Mark 5, and then the other story being book 9 and 10 from Homer's Odyssey, the Polyphemus story. I'm not sure if you've read Homer. I haven't even read it myself since high school, but I'm familiar with this story. Anyway, here are the parallels between.
Me too, but yes.
Yeah, it's been a while. I probably should read the whole book again. But here are the parallels between those two stories that a scholar, one of my favorite scholars, has pointed out. Mark's Gerasene demoniac story and the Odyssey's Polyphemus story both include the hero sailing to a land where a savage lives. They both include the savage living in a cave on a mountain. They both include the hero waking up during a storm on a boat. They both include people being changed into pigs. They both include the victims of the spell/miracle begging for mercy. They both include a giant herd of farm animals grazing. They both include the hero being accompanied by 12 men. Both Mark and Greek art before the New Testament depict the savage as nude. Both stories include the hero being begged by someone not to harm them. Both include the exchange of names between the hero and the savage, with polar opposite names given in both stories. Both include animal herders calling out to the locals for help. Both include the locals coming to check on the herd. Both stories include the hero telling the changed savage to proclaim to everyone who had changed him. And both include the savage begging the hero to be reunited with them just as the hero's leaving on the boat. So, in my opinion, that cannot be a coincidence. That is plagiarism. But it's not plagiarism, it's mimesis, because it's these people. I don't think that it was a secret what they were doing.
Yeah, plagiarism wasn't the thing. Like, it was not to a point encouraged, but it was like, feel free to take from this and add to it.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone was quite open about adapting mythology from culture to culture back then.
Yeah, the idea of plagiarism
these parallels
is a modern thing.
These can't be explained by coincidence. And granted, there are many differences in these stories as well. But with mimesis, this is syncretic mimesis specifically, which was when you make a comparison by mimicking an older story. And with mimesis, the differences are an absolute necessity. That's where the point of mimesis comes from, or that's where the point of the, when the author is making a mimetic parallel like that, and they draw a bunch of parallels from an older story and adapt it and change it, the differences are the important part of the story. The similarities are there to keep as a key to the reader to let them know, this is, look what I'm doing. Like I'm calling back to this myth, you know what I mean? And the differences are how they adapt the myth to fit their culture, to change it for their laws and their culture, their religion, their views. And this is exactly what Virgil did with the Homeric stories, to adapt it to the Roman views and the Roman laws and the Roman religions and stuff. And that's exactly what the Gospels seem to be doing, at least in Mark 5 with the Gerasene demoniac story. Mark, whoever authored Mark, I'll just give it. We'll just say it was Mark. He seems to have copied from Homer.
Round it up a wee bit. It's been going a wee bit. I'm starting to go.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Right? No, you're fine. You're fine. You got your point out. I cut you off in your ramble. I wish more people would do it when I did it. Eric, if you'd like to respond, and then we'll give a shout out to the omnipotent being that is Q.
Yeah, if I could have maybe about 2 minutes to give a full response. First of all, I would have to read that to give you a fair estimation of what I really think, because I have read a lot of these comparisons. For instance, people comparing Jesus with Horace, and when I looked at the actual stories of Horace, they were way overblown. For instance, Horace didn't have 12 apostles, and there were several other things they were miscued on. So that's part of my response. The second part of my response is that I believe all ancient religions are related, and that they go back in time to a very, very early time in man's history, where they shared common experiences, and therefore we have common stories. For instance, the flood, you'll find in every ancient culture out there.
No, you don't.
And then, well, yes, you do.
There's no flood myth in Egypt.
Well, sure there is.
No, there isn't.
Well, pardon me. Let me finish my point, and then I'll answer that point. But so not only that, but Hollywood, for instance, has done every kind of story you can imagine. So over and over and over again, you see elements of a story that are exactly the same in any 10 other movies. In other words, life happens, and it happens in a cycle, and it repeats. And so it's not uncommon to have things that are very, very similar through time. So that's how I would answer that. Now, as far as the
Chinese flood myth, just a sec, so you can have another one. The Chinese flood myth does not include any worldwide flooding. It's about localized flooding of the Yangtze and Yellow River being tamed by civil service. That's the only flood myth they have.
They still have a flood myth.
Okay, cool. Cool. I'm not even going to. I agree, Zach. My brain's exploding. Like, you,
Could I
Kel,
respond back? Could I respond back really quick? Just one last thing to Eric.
just to not ruin it and be happy with everyone. I'm that guy that just everybody pop me in there. Go on ahead, Andy.
It'll be my last thing. I just wanted to also point out that the Homeric stories were taught to the to people in Rome and all the way in the Roman Empire how to speak Greek, and we know that these people were speaking Greek, and so we know that they learned the Homeric epics. They learned Euripides, they learned Virgil, they learned all of the Greek epics and poems to learn how to speak Greek. And not only that, these stories were like Star Wars for them. So we need to also keep that in mind, that these stories were, in their back pocket, and everyone knew these stories like the back of their hand. So not only are there nearly 20 extremely weird and specific similarities in almost the exact same order between those two stories, but they're coming from a story that everyone in the area knew as well. And also, to add on to that, one more final thing is that mimesis, the copying of stories like that, the adaptation of one religion, taking elements from a religion and incorporating it into your new story to fit your culture, was something that literally every single mythology did. Everyone did it. You can trace it back, and everyone took elements from nearby cultures from them that were surrounding them from before them. That's how everyone adapt their mythology. Mimesis, it's just a part of human nature. And so there's when we see what appears to be mimesis in the Bible coming from a story that they were all extremely familiar with, why would we think it's something else?
I think you just answered your own question.
Have you ever heard
human nature?
Yeah. Let the Almighty, Q will just click his fingers and we'll all vanish. But go on.
Yeah, I'm finished. By the way, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, human nature is exactly what it is. It's like everybody can tell a story about going to walk to the end of their street and check the mail. It doesn't invalidate anybody's particular story of it necessarily, just because it's something that happens to happen. Because some of the stuff you described is like, okay, people going off into an island. Well, for any ancient culture, that's going to have some significance. Okay, the people in that island being mysterious, being savages. I can think of like 4 different other stories that are similar, where they go off to Hyperzil, or they go off to Hyperborea. Like that type of story. Like I made up probably 12 different versions of that before I was 10 years old, and I had never read any Greek mythology. Right? It's just probably from all the stuff that I gleaned from all of the different cartoons. Like all of these different things are absolutely. But that's the thing; they're all part of the human condition.
I recently came in contact back in contact with a friend who had remained friends with a friend, but I haven't talked to in about a year. When you do that catch up, when you do a wee chat and stuff, and they were like, I heard such and such, heard the X, because you're telling the story and you're like, oh, Mr. X told me about that. Mr. X is a very genuine person, and I told Mr. X exactly what happened. But even the small inclusion of that one person, when it went to Mr. Y, and then I've now talked to Mr. Y, it's not like there's anything changed, but there is exaggerations in the story. The story may be, I walked a half mile home. In their version, they walked 3 mile home. There is no intention of doing that.
Also, when somebody was there, if I know that they never, like one of the things in that list that you just gave was artwork depicting it. But
yeah,
do you really think that's a good?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if I can respond, that is a good one, because art all the way from the 7th century BCE all the way up until past the medieval times into the 1700s, but specifically up until the
no, you're talking about the artwork depicting the Jesus story in the Bible.
No, depicting Polyphemus from the Homeric story. The artwork depicting the Homeric story and the Gospel of Mark both depict the savage as nude.
Also,
okay, but aren't savages usually depicted as nude?
No, that's not necessarily true. Also, the point that he said is
right, but to say that that's some kind of like
in order order, I think, is a very important pair of words.
most. That's another thing to point out is that these are some of these parallels are really specific, and they and not only that, but you need to what we need to also note is that when there are differences between these parallels, they often do exactly what we know mimesis to do, and that's to glorify the new characters in the more modern story. And when there are differences between the Polyphemus story and the gospel, it does indeed glorify Jesus in almost every single example. And as Zach was just saying, a vast majority of these parallels are in the exact same order.
Right, but I would bet if you would have looked at each one of those in a row,
I have
logically.
extensively.
I mean, you basically have more evidence for 9/11. That the Israel was behind 9/11, right?
No,
because you're putting together independent ideas that the only thing that you can do is piece together things. It seems to be across.
And I'm not piecing anything together. I'm listing off things that they share in common, and there's actually way more than what I listed.
Name a random one. Just give me a random one.
Would you name it? Would you? All right, then. Would you say the same about all the things that are taken in the Old Testament from the Enuma Elish, the Eridu, Genesis, the Atrahasis?
What about that?
Same thing.
There's like so much that's just straight up just taken from all
like
of them.
What? The fact that somebody created something?
No,
the waters above the waters,
created from
the
clay.
Enuma Elish isn't
till
even
the
really a
soil.
creation story. That the original
what?
God views
No,
were
no, there's
not
so many
creations from
no.
nothing. They believe that they were created from eternal matter, so that they're completely different.
What are you on about? Both? What are you on about? Both Mesopotamian myths. But dude, I was just reading it. So the story of Ninhursag and Enki. It's not the Enuma Elish, but it's the Sumerian myth. The story of Enki and Ninhursag. No, not Ninhursag. That's the other one. Ninmah. I think it's Ninmah. They make people from clay to till the soil. And also in the Eridu Genesis, Enlil makes people from clay to till the soil. Like there's
right.
also a
That's
lot of
what I said.
similarities.
They create things out of matter. The God of Genesis creates things out of nothing.
What do you want about?
What
do you want about? So Tiamat and the Abzu come together, fresh and salt water, to create everything, whereas yours it takes them apart.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, you're
Zach. I got a good question for you, Zach.
What you just said, yes, they needed water. They needed things to create things out of something. The only thing God had needed was His command.
No, He doesn't. God separates the waters to make stuff. He tells the waters to collect so land can be seen. That's what Genesis says.
P-Town, hi, how are you? You have a question for Zach, so
Good,
Zach will still get to talk because he's very enthusiastic right now. I get that.
It's something that I find interesting, but if you look at the Paleo Chinese lexicons and you look at what the word is for boat, it's 8 people or 8 mouths and a house. Are you following me? It's just another cool pattern that I see a lot of in God's holy word and how He proves it divine. And you can see the same imagery kind of hinted in other cultures and their languages as well. I would like to get your take on that.
I kind of don't understand what you're talking about.
So there were 8 people. There were 8 people that were saved.
Before you do your re-spiel, ask a question, aim it with a point to make it clear, because both Zach and me are both quite high. Rounding it up in 30 minutes, so just to give everyone a goal to try and keep their points short and stuff. Oh yeah, go ahead, Pete.
8 people were saved on Noah's flood.
Yeah.
Okay.
My
8 mouths and a house.
They were copying. That's my response.
Right, and we would say the same thing the other way around. You know,
I mean, Enki gives the same description. Enki gives the same description for Atrahasis to make the ark the same way the God does.
And
so you're saying they made the language, the word for boat, just to confirm, Zach, they made the word for boat to copy it after Noah's Ark.
Yeah, why
just
not?
to confirm that's your claim.
The Atrahasis was written well before all that.
What's ridiculous about that? I mean, religious stories hold insanely high amounts of significance to cultures. Why wouldn't they change letters or words?
The ancient Chinese people made their word for boat because they felt like copying it after the Israelite story.
The Chinese flood myth has nothing to do with the worldwide flood of Noah or anything like that.
You know something though, you do make the point.
Chinese
that-
mythology is completely different, except they do have a Garden of Eden.
Maybe I think I misunderstood you.
But also, Journey to the West came afterwards, so.
If it came afterwards, then how did they make their letter or their word for boat be 8 mouths and a house?
I don't know.
just
I'm
claimed-
not from before the Qin dynasty, so I wouldn't have any idea.
Really? You've got that nice
Well,
Fu Manchu thing going if you just grew it out a wee bit?
Yeah, I misunderstood you initially, P-Town. I see what you're saying now. I would just probably chalk it up to a coincidence, I guess.
How many coincidences does it take for you to believe in the living God that is Jesus Christ, that's clearly demonstrated through
Okay,
Scripture
and
across time?
Yep, and I would say the exact same thing to you. I would say the same exact thing to you. How many coincidences do you need to see from the Bible taking from other stories before you realize that that's what they were doing in the entire book?
Sure. So is that your claim then, that they took the 8 mouths and a house from the Israelite story to make their word to make their word for boat? Is that your claim? Because that's what it sounds like.
I just said
that's what you just said at the end there, though.
I just said it was a coincidence. I'm talking about the Bible. The Bible.
No, so now let's talk about coincidences. How many coincidences does it take for you to believe in a
Let
fact?
them respond. P-Town, I let you rant there.
I
You
don't
got a
think
wee bit
there's
of
a
freedom
number
because
on
you
it.
just come in. Let Andy respond.
The Romans didn't even know about the Chinese.
Your name's
properly.
not fucking
The
Andy.
Levantine people
Your
had no
name's
chance.
not fucking Andy.
Yeah, I think that the thing is that consistently every time when you look into these biblical coincidences, they fall apart and they're always being misrepresented, or it's based on interpretation heavily.
Okay, Zach, go on ahead now.
Like Levantine peoples of like 14 BC, was it the first time we know of anything Israelite is the mention of Hebrews on the Stele of Menempta in 1207 BCE, right? At that time, there was no connection between the Chinese and the Middle East. The Romans barely even knew they existed. The Levantine people had no chance. The Egyptians didn't know. The closest they knew to anything Chinese was the people of the Indus Valley, because we have found coinage from the Indus Valley both in Mesopotamia and in Egypt. We have found nothing that connects.
Why don't you think they have?
But they knew of Noah's Ark, and it was manifested in the written language.
Prove
Boom.
it. Got a letter
I
that
just
says-
did.
It
What
looks
about
like
the Habaru and the Amarna letters?
Nothing to do with
Do you
that.
think those are the?
So when
Habaru-
was that? When
those are
was that
from
word written? When was that word made? Then
1425
I don't fucking
BC.
know.
when was that Chinese word made? Let's figure this out, because I know that the Babylonian, the creation stories about the flood are much older. I
I
don't
was
know.
thinking the exact same thing, Andy, at the time. I was
So
thinking
you're
the
just
same
picking
thing.
and
It's
choosing
an
your own
influence.
standard based on your
Yeah.
own arbitrary criteria, right? 'Cause
Why?
One can
How-
say,
how
well,
so?
the Bible got it from this. The other can say one
Of
got it from
course.
this. You got to
That's a logical.
There's
That's
got
a
to be
logical
another
conclusion.
standard. Otherwise, you're just talking each other in circles.
No, so we know. So things like the Enuma Elish came from around 16 to 1400 BC. We know that the Eridu
Yeah,
Genesis.
but I've already disproven to you that the Enuma Elish is
200.
not a copy, because it does not. You said it's so similar to the
It is.
Bible and to Genesis. It's not at all. So you're
Yeah,
already your foundation
there are
of what you're saying is
similarities.
already not accurate.
It
There-
both says
there-
that
there
the
are
formation
extreme
plan-
similarities.
It both has a
Extreme
woman.
similarities like what?
It both has a
Like
female.
a
It both has a
creator?
female character that comes from a rib called the mother of all living. Like there's so many similarities.
The separation of the waters from the waters,
Okay,
the firmament.
You know, one thing that I've noticed, guys,
So literally, the firmament, the separating of the waters.
How
from
many
the waters is
similarities
copied
could you
when
find
Marduk-
between
when Marduk killed
Aeneas, the
Tiamat.
Ennead, and Lord of the Rings?
MathPig,
mean, Lord of the Rings is the Bible,
interject
don't
in a few minutes here.
I appreciate you coming in, Eric. Thank you very much. Understandably.
And the Epic of Gilgamesh is where the real similarities between the flood myth and the Mesopotamian mythology is. That, in my opinion, they're way stronger
Guys,
than
if
the
I
Epic
could,
of Gilgamesh.
if I could address this
version?
for just one moment, I've studied something when it comes to all the ancient religions, and I'm not talking about Islam. I'm talking ancient religions. When we go back to all the ancient religions, there are tons of similarities, and I've noticed this. You have one group of monotheists who follow the God of Abraham, And then you have another group, everybody else seems to be polytheists. And I believe there's a reason for this, because the scriptures tell us that the sons of God looked upon the daughters of men and saw they were fair. We take that as the angels of God copulating with women, human women. And they created, it says that they created all the mighty men of old. This was include Hercules and Apollo and all of these things. So when you look at this, according to the Bible, these guys came down here and they copulated with human women, made giants and semi-gods,
Damn
demigods,
Nephilim.
and that they ruled the world, and that there was a flood that wiped them all out. Now, half the world has that very same story. This story.
Yeah, I would agree. No. He changed his statement just to clarify. Eric said every ancient had this myths and story. He's now changed it to at least half. And I would say that at least half of civilization has started their civilization close to a water source because it's damn near fucking needed, and shit does flood.
If I could finish my point, if you don't mind.
Oh, I was standing up for you, but go on ahead.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. But all I'm saying is, guys, I believe that the Bible has shown us the truth of what's really happened. And when you look at the breakdown of all of these other ancient civilizations, everything that they did do was polytheist. It was polytheist. And then when you look at the early ziggurats, we had ziggurats before we had temples.
Dude, when I went to the local Chinese, I was polytheist on all the menu, and now I'm totally monotheist. Because I know exactly what I want from that. Just human nature.
What about when the Bible talks about God's wife Asherah?
The Bible doesn't.
That's spoken of as an abomination.
Yeah, under King Josiah's reforms.
Can you actually give that argument and claim? Okay, so you know nothing about the Old Testament, or you're lying.
What are you on about?
I mean, you can't make that argument. What about this? When Scripture literally describes this,
you're not literally hundreds, if not thousands of Asherah figures found around the Temple Mount.
Give me another one.
It does mention Asherah. He is accurate.
Yeah, but it doesn't say she's God's wife. Come on.
Well, okay, yeah,
yes,
but
it mentions Asherah. Are you really going to be this dishonest as well? Are you kidding me?
It does with the Asherah polls. It does mention
because Asherah is also El's wife, which Yahweh says is his original name.
It's just like I've actually seen with my own eyes Canaanite idols, at the Walters Art Gallery. Yeah. They're great. So just because they found them, people say, well, look, doesn't this prove the Israelites worshipped idols that they called Baal? And it's like, that's apparently you don't know that that's exactly what Scripture says they did. And that's the reason why they needed the redemption. We found
so many of them around the Temple Mount. We know that the early Hebrews worshipped Asherah. We have archaeological evidence.
The Bible says that they did.
Yeah.
What a dumpster fire.
He took down the idols of Asherah and he took down the things in the high places.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, somebody sounded polite. Oh God, it's P-Town. Yes, you sounded polite, P-Town. You may ask a question.
Andy, I'm sorry to bring it back to this one point I wanted to make coming on here, but the Chinese ancient Paleo Hebrew is simply 8 mouths and a boat, which patterns Noah's flood with. There's 8 people saved. It's 8 mouths and a house. Mm-hmm. And you said, I would just chalk up to coincidence. That's really logical. I think that's a good answer. Now, can you say how can it be just coincidence? Like, what's the odds that it's just coincidence? And would you give it any measure?
Closer to Akkadian.
I would say that it's way more likely than there being 19. I think it's way more likely for the word boat to mean something similar to a story coincidentally than for the Gospel of Mark to copy 19 parallels from a really popular story in their area in almost the exact same order.
How many of those parallels were also copied in Lord of the Flies?
I have no idea. I mean, why wouldn't we conclude that Lord of the Flies copied from Homer too? If they draw that many parallels, if there's a bunch of parallels, why wouldn't we conclude that the author of Lord of the Flies?
Great allegory. So I mean, it's not
all this is like who was first in their story argument over and over again. I'm gonna go It's just not
Yeah.
fruitful.
Okay. I don't
Take
know
care
why
of
I'm
that's
feeling a wee
upsetting
bit
to you.
circular myself. It is not the best going on. I was just thinking about how. Oh,
Yeah, he took off. I mean,
and
it's not being
Eric's about
addressed
to
though.
leave as
The
well.
significance of these parallels is not being addressed though.
Yeah, but
It's
how
way
many of
too.
those parallels are just simply basic elements of most stories that are told by people that live in those
And
circumstances?
and
I
some of those
agree.
parallels
I-
are exaggerated greatly too.
It's
They're
about
really not.
having the
I
divine
took
inspired
great
word of
care in
God
making
being
sure.
told
I took
before
really
by the-
great care in making sure that I represented each parallel accurately and
Yeah,
not
so did the
exaggerated
people
in
People
it.
living on an
provided
island
parallels
called
of
savages.
Honorius and Christ. But
If you ever read Herodotus, everybody that lived on an island that was away from any Aegean was a savage, and they usually were. I mean,
Are
none
you
of these
aware
things-
that Herodotus is one of the most popular examples of mimesis from Homer?
What do you mean? Which one's so? Which one copied off of which one?
Herodotus copied off of Homer. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to raise my voice. My bad.
Oh no, I was sighing over the
I'm
fact
going to
that
have
I.
to say goodbye. I apologize. I do need to say goodbye.
All right.
But
It was
I
nice
want to thank
talking
you,
to you.
MathPig, for inviting me up.
If you
And,
do,
if-
just before you leave, Eric, just before you leave, this
Yes.
is a channel that I would like you to look up in the private chat. It may not be relevant to you, but I also think that you should look it up. It's mainly based around the start of, you know, the Indo-European. With that, may explain the connections between Chinese language and our language, may not, but it goes down into that and where these stories come from on the basis of language and population growth around. Like, it's a very good channel. I would recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it.
I've clicked into it. I will check it out. Thank you. And let me offer you guys an open invitation, too. I would love to get into the scientific discussion here sometime when we all have an opportunity and a chance. So
on that,
we can do it on your channel
if that is
or
open,
my channel, either one. It doesn't matter.
That is
But thank you
genuinely
guys for
open
your
to work.
hospitality.
Right? If that is genuinely open, I do believe that we're going to have to slam something down and we need to agree on definition. There needs to be a definitional agreement. And if there's a definitional agreement on things that we can cite or whatever, I know it's an awful lot of work, but you know, we need to create that communication because there's people saying things to yourself, you're implying your assumptions on them, and then we're saying things and your definitions are different. And it's a both problem side, it's a communication side. But if you're up for being open to a conversation or two, slamming down definitions beforehand, no bother.
That's cool. Well, think about the scientific aspect of the discussion and any questions you might want to ask me to clarify, and I'll be happy to. So, God bless you guys. Thank you for your kindness. You have a good evening. See you later.
In Abyssals, yeah.
The etymology of science is related to the word for shit. Because scientia from Latin scio, which is like split, and then splitting, which also is related to shedding. So shedding, which where you get, because when you're splitting knowledge, it's like you're rightly dividing something. So like the word that comes out of that, which comes from shedding, which is shedding, you're shedding something. And then you also have this splitting something, which is again the scio.
I found out today, this is a weird fact, but on the topic of language, and I thought it was funny. Do you see the private chat? Do you see that word? Could American people pronounce that word, and then I will pronounce that word as a UK speaker?
Soldering.
Solder, right? We do pronounce the L over here. I found out today that the original word came from the Greek to mean to join, I think it was. And then that was based on the Latin that meant to combine or something. Very, very similar, you know. But the Latin one had the L and the Greek one didn't. The word that we based it upon came from the Greek one, and something like the 15th century, everybody was starting to speak Latin because that was the language that was being used. So they changed the wording, which was the popular one at the time. Not that writing was popular, but they tried to make it more Latinized, and they put the L back in again. Even though the Greek version came from the Latin one and got rid of it, they put it back in again. So technically, is the American one more accurate, or is the UK?
I think it might be.
It's a funny wee thing
Kel-
about
Kelby,
language.
Shoot up again. That's
Kelby,
like
I wanted to correct myself. I was wrong about Herodotus. I was thinking of Hesiod. That was my bad.
okay. Yeah, no problem.
Sorry about
Just
that.
thought that was a wee quirk on language. The fact that it can change over time, and in all
That's like
honesty,
a-
I live in fucking Ireland. If I get into my car
Warranty?
and drove for an hour, I would meet someone that I didn't understand what they were talking about. We have so many accents here.
Two of the favorites are warranty and guarantee are the same word. They've
Catalog.
just from different they come into English through a different language. And then the other one is guardian and warden. Well, guardian and warden.
Here's another one for you. Cultural appropriation. These two words originated in other cultures. So the phrase cultural appropriation was culturally appropriated.
Damn, that's awesome.
I
I'm
think
from
my favorite one is the
Baltimore.
American. I think my
Baltimore
favorite-
means town of the big house. Balanchimor.
Pardon?
The word Baltimore is Irish for town of the big house. Balanchimor. Or I guess it's named after Baltimore, but supposedly that's named
I
after
seen
the-
an American guy go to Las Vegas and go to a British UK type restaurant and get chicken tikka masala and be confused about the fact that it's on the menu. And it's like, yeah, no, curry and tikka masala. It's the thing that's been appropriated mainly by the British, not over here, but
Well, no, tikka masala is Scottish.
I'm not, dude. If you watch the video,
Most British
they were
curries are English.
They fucking put mince in a shepherd's pie. Like, how many shepherds do you know own cows?
I mean, to be honest, we do it in America as well.
What the? Well, it wasn't in America, but like, what the fuck?
Well, technically, beef inside of shepherd's pie makes it cottage pie.
Exactly. That's the point.
That's
And
the
they had
word
it on
beef.
the menu as shepherd's pie. It's like it's shepherd's pie, and you're putting 70% mince and 30% lamb in. It's like, dude, that's a cottage pie. That's not a shepherd's pie.
My favorite one. My favorite one is that soccer is a British term, and Americans are correct. It is soccer.
No way.
Yes, 100%.
Oh my god, that feels so good.
Soccer comes
Say
from
that. Tell
Cambridge.
the Football Association that the people that run the fucking group.
Yeah.
Like,
No, they agree
Oh, that's
because
such
it was
a W.
created in Cambridge. It was a shortened term for Associated Football.
oh, on that topic, right? On weirdness and this sort of thing. Did you know that there was a version of American football originally played in Canada under a different name than what they call it now, and was adopted and now American football? So American football actually started as a game in Canada.
Yeah.
It's my
The only,
mesos.
the only actual American game's basketball.
Nobody here is actually making factual statements that we can prove or bring up with papers right now, because I can't be arsed hitting that button. Take nothing we say with anything other than a grain of salt. Do your own research, okay? The Earth is a
That's
dome.
not always good.
Yeah.
Do your own research means people go, oh, RFK, what lovely things you say.
Oh my God, don't even get me fucking started on that motherfucker. I showed him, like my mother, I said earlier, my mother be a Christian, she would be slightly conservative and stuff. And we've had conversations on my brain wiring, okay? We're not going to say autism or anything like that. I've not been diagnosed. I don't want to make any claims, you know? But these sort of things and topics have come up with actions and stuff, right? And my mum was I don't want to say a supporter of JFK, or Junior. He came out and said these statements about autism, and then he said about the fetal things in the immunizations, and I showed them to my ma, and she was like, right, so I officially need a wheelchair and a helper, and it helps that he keeps talking. It turns people off that support him.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm
Not a
up for
fan.
accelerism. Do you know what I mean by that? In the reference of what's happening with America at the minute. Okay. When he got voted in, I told a right-leaning guy, a friend of mine, a person at work, says the best thing that Trump ever did was get men out of sports. Person I talk to every day, have a smoke at breakfast with, you know? We're cordial. And I told him when Trump got voted in, he wouldn't last 2 years. There could be reasons. I'm not going to say JD Vance is better, but the idea of accelerism in this context is the more fucking things he pushes, the more rules that he breaks, and the more right-wing sort of leaning people and this, that, and the other. If you've seen his new budget that he's trying to propose and slip through, things like this, the idea of accelerism is the faster he fucks up and tries to annoy people and do his thing for the rich, the quicker they'll get rid of him.
That's not necessarily true in the slightest.
It's not necessarily true.
They've been creating an air of doubt about everything for almost a decade. Plus.
Oh no, his most recent 2 live interviews were insane.
This is why they quoted all the conspiracy theorists, because they will believe anything he says. And like,
did you not see the picture on the knuckles, man? Did you not see the picture?
Not to be rude, but this is, in my opinion, exactly why he appeals to Christianity. Because, and I'm trying to be polite, but in my opinion, Christians are believing in a conspiracy theory, and that's why. And he notices that, and that's why he's intentionally appealing to Christians, not only Christians, but also like uneducated rednecks and shit. Like he's targeting a really vulnerable group of people intentionally.
Well, it's a class that was intentionally made.
As opposed to targeting poor inner city black youths, like usually what the left does.
Yeah,
it's basically the same.
I guess
game.
the difference is the difference would be the size of the populations between the two.
I've been letting a poll run in the chat for about 20 minutes nearly now. Do I need help? 62% of the people watching agree, yes, I need help. 38% obviously then against it. On that note, Jill is in the chat. The link is in the private chat.
Oh dear.
The link is in the description, sorry.
Please be polite, Jill. Let's keep it cordial. We've all been nice.
Siberian Gal Pal. Welcome. Never seen you before. Have I seen you? Do I know you? I get around. I'm a bit of a slut. I streak everywhere. Although when I dress up, I look well. You can't even see the shininess, like nice little paisley pattern. You're all jealous. Oh, I'm trying to...
I definitely am.
It's. Do you know what's really funny? Do you know what the difference is when I shave my head and don't shave my head? The only thing I have to do is this hat. I have to change the wee Velcro thing inside. Because if I shave my head and then go out in the wind, because there's less fucking grip, the hat will fly off my head. When I shave my head, there's like 2 days of a period, you know, where I have to make it a little bit tighter. Hassles of owning fucking...
Damn it.
Smokey Saint is back. Smokey, are you coming in?
Oh, I was just wondering about him.
Come in. We're only running for another 10-15 minutes anyway, but I would be interested for you to come back in, give your thoughts on the debate. We did get Willie to give his thoughts on the debate for a wee while. Discussion. I don't know what the fuck it was. But it would be good for you to come in, even just for 5-10 minutes, and give your thoughts. I don't think you seen it, Zach, did you? You just seen the after party was live.
Yeah.
There was Smokey Saint versus Willie Freeman on reasonable belief. And it sort of turned into a wee bit of a Bible study. But I don't know.
It's literally what I was doing before I got on here. I was on Stream of Mine. I was reading through the first 5 chapters of Genesis.
Siberian Gal Pal, have you been lurking in the...
I can't wait to get on to Moses, because I want to talk about the Hyksos.
Mm.
I totally think the Hyksos is the Exodus.
Or Sargon of Akkad?
No. The Hyksos are I think the 17th dynasty of Egypt. They ruled the lower kingdom, which is the upper one, because of how the Nile flows. And they were driven out at the end of the first intermediary period, and they were Levantine people. And they got in, like, they also, like, one of the first kings is called Jacob and all sorts. I totally think that the Hyksos then went up into, the Levantine areas and went in
There's
with
a part in Genesis where
people.
They specifically say these shepherds are an abomination to us. The Egyptians say that. So, being that the Hyksos are usually seen as the shepherd culture. But have you ever seen the El Armana letters?
I've seen yes. Even the Tel El Amarna letters talk about, they make fun of Egyptian kings by saying, "Hey, why don't you go live with the Apiru?"
Yeah, that's where I was like. I'm convinced that the Apiru were the invading Israelites.
They
But
weren't invading. What with the archaeological evidence we have is that there was a peaceful infiltration.
well, what would that? What is that? What does archaeological evidence of a peaceful infiltration look like?
So it looks like slow mergings of different types
Hey,
of pottery
friends.
and idols. It also looks like when we try and look at different strata of say places like Ai and stuff like that, we don't see any clear, concise lines of battle that would span any type of period less than 150 years. And like there's lots of places that didn't even exist at that time.
We do have evidence of like battles between the cities. You can see the one guy. What is it?
True.
This of
But we
have a
also
battle of,
sorry, go on.
the well back to the letters themselves. I mean, just generally what they are is the people from Canaan sending letters to Egypt asking, why don't you help us? We're being overrun by these bandits, basically.
And Egypt sends 40 people.
You think it's like 20 people they were talking
about?
No,
that's what the Tel El Amarna letters say. See, the thing is the Tel El Amarna letters isn't just between the Levantine and Egypt. It's also
it spans hundreds of years. There's
a lot of the different, there's a lot of different kingdoms in there.
Oh yeah, they definitely span it, but yeah, they're amazing. Like this, I think they were also found in rubbish bins, right?
Sort of, yeah. Because like it was a lot of the tablets were baked because it was like burnt in a fire. But also we can see evidence of more Hebrew type things like lack of pig bones and stuff in refuge pits, and we can see a lot of that happening closer to the rise of the Sea Peoples. After that happens, we see a lot more of that in the Levantine Canaanite areas, because the Sea Peoples came in possibly from the Aegean Sea and just decimated everyone. They even like hurt Egypt quite a bit.
So have you ever read, or any of you read, when I first got into like religious stuff, looking up on the internet back in like 1999, the first thing I found was called The Annals of the Four Masters. And that went along with the Irish Book of Invasions. And those go, and this is before I was into the Bible. So I studied the Bible, I studied this before scripture, along with the Book of Enoch and the Book of Giants, right? The Book of Giants was like, the Book of Giants is so short, like it's basically like Gilgamesh mixed with like Enoch kind of But the book, the fascinating thing about the Annals of the Four Masters was it claimed to go back to like the year 1, and then Noah's granddaughter. But it also, it's clearly, once you see what it is, it's trying to mix everything with a particular culture and kind of associate biblical stuff with the people writing it, because it basically gives you from the beginning of the world all the way to the flood of Noah, and then beginning to the year of our Lord, right, and then going forward from there, and it just goes. But it talks about the Scythians, it talks about the Milesians, and if you actually piece together a lot of these names that it's using, it's basically like the colonization of Europe from people from the East, and I think there's a. I'm trying to squeeze a whole lot of thoughts into a couple little words, but the idea of successive invasions coming that you can trace in languages, and I would actually argue that tracing them linguistically is probably more accurate than tracing stuff even archaeologically sometimes.
Not necessarily, because when you get far enough back, things aren't done on like paper or papyrus anymore. So we actually have a lot more records of things that happened. So even when the Sea Peoples invaded, we actually, in the Tel El Amarna, we can actually see, like, people, some of these kingdoms going to Egypt, please come and help me. These crazy Sea People barbarians have come in and they're ravaging everyone. I can see the fires. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we know pretty solidly, even through we can also see there's various different bits of pottery and pot holders that actually started staying there, and we can see that there's evidence that actually the Sea Peoples might have stayed afterwards and might be recorded in the Bible as the Philistines.
Possibly. Let me ask you this: as the person, because I don't know if you believe in some of the Bible, or or just none of it, or. But
believing it as in it happened, or believing it as in it says the miracles? Because
I guess it doesn't really, because I was a history nerd first before I was a Christian,
I would say there's true facts in the Bible, but the untrue facts massively outweigh.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, like the fact that it talks about.
So, for instance, the first
inkhorn.
person we ever.
You don't need it. For instance, we all fucking know it. We've all studied the Bible. Let Q respond or Kelly respond.
Okay, you probably didn't know the fact I was going to say, but go on.
Oh, you sneaky bastard.
Thinking of like just the notion that I remember reading it once, and it talks about a writer's inkhorn, right? And just the fact that it discusses these things, prostitutes, what they wear, but like all these little tiny details that have survived, and I don't think those are made up. I think these are just accurate depictions of history that you can, like, a window into time. Now, as a Christian, I believe that it's the most believable window in the time that we can read, versus reading any other history that has been written down. And that's just because of my faith, right? But those little details, though, the fact that you have inkhorn,
some of those little details are very false.
Or how they said stuff, the shibboleth, like the fact that they pronounced something wrong, and they were like, "Oh, if you gave a list, we kill you." Like these little details are.
Yeah, but then there's little. But the problem is then there's little details like, hey, why are the camels in Genesis? Because camels weren't introduced into the Levant until the 8th century BCE. And by the way, MathPig, the fact I was going to say is the first person in the Bible that has historically accurate, that we know 100% existed, is the Pharaoh Shishonk in fucking, that's mentioned as Pharaoh Shishak in Judges.
Okay, well, I know a lot of guys that go to Thailand and come back and go Shishlong. Lots of life.
You don't think there's a relationship between Jupiter and Japheth and Zeus Pater? And then there's there's an Indian god that's like called Zeus-Zater. Like they're all like they're so similar. I mean, again, it doesn't it doesn't really prove much other than it could just be a coincidence of that's just like word father and mother are very similar across languages.
Like Zeus and that came afterwards, so definitely. Like we see a lot of like nicked Christian and Jewish mythology and other things that came later. The problem is this, like, we can't prove anything happened in the Bible until like what? Well, until like the Babylonian exile. The closest thing we have to evidence of anything of David is one potsherd that says "from the house of David" on it. That's the only archaeological evidence we have. We've never found the first Temple Mount. We have no evidence.
How could you ever
anything of the glorious first kingdom?
I'm not challenging anybody.
Let me finish. I've got just 2 seconds and I'll finish. Right. The only evidence we have of Jerusalem around the year 10,000 BCE or whatever.
Be correct in the things you're fucking saying.
Village.
Well. Again, what would you expect? But
I would expect to find better because we have found archaeological evidence of humans from 14,000 years ago.
There's archaeological evidence of a temple right along the side of the Mount, the Spring of Gihon, which is older than the Jebusite.
Evidence of the first.
It's in what?
We have evidence of the second Temple Mount, not the first.
No, I'm talking about there's a temple on the side of the Gihon Spring that was originally actually walled. That's pre-Jebusite, which means that's pre anything.
The only thing we found in the Spring of Gihon, and if you have to, I'd love to see something about this temple in the mountain next to it. From what I remember, all it is the base it has Hezekiah's tunnel in it.
It's connected to that because that's logically. But
no, we found Hezekiah's tunnel, or at least it's claimed to be. So,
well, where the water comes out is part of that same spring. But I'm just saying that the evidence that they have there. I mean, they have buildings upon buildings on top of buildings on top of buildings, right? Like so, right? So, I mean, I'm just saying that as far back as they've gone there is definitely like of all the stuff that's around there. What's there on Jerusalem, the exact same spot supposedly where. When what's his name, Abraham went up to kill his son on top of the mountain, and then was told, your son.
That's not true.
Don't kill your son, right? Like that same exact area when he talked to the guy Melchizedek with the bread and the wine. Like that's where all that's supposed to.
No, it isn't.
What's that?
No,
Sorry,
it
I'm not
isn't.
trying to preach.
It's like where Abraham takes his kid is nowhere near Jerusalem.
It's supposedly Mount Moriah, right? And that's where it's
Uh,
supposed to be. If you look up Mount Moriah, that's where it supposedly was. And he says he calls it Jehovah Jireh, the God will provide. And he says God will provide a lamb, but he actually provided a ram. So it's like, oh, the Bible was wrong about that. Unless you know that the lamb is Jesus, who God provides later on. But sorry, I'll stop preaching on that.
You see, you say that, but even the thing that says that Jesus is coming, it's talking about the king of Assyria. What do you want about?
The Antichrist?
No, Isaiah, where it says that the woman shall give birth to a son, and he shall be called Emmanuel. That's about the coming of the kingdom of Assyria, the king of Assyria. It's not Jesus.
Even if it was,
no, 100%.
It's still shown to have many different.
Also, even the idea of the virgin birth comes from a mistranslation from Aramaic into Greek. Alma going into Parthenos.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
And why did the Septuagint translate it Alma rather than Parthenos, or Parthenos rather than Alma?
Because
Who did the Septuagint? Was it Jews or was it Greeks?
Right. If anyone wants to set up a stream to continue the chat, even just a hangout or whatever, you can do that. I want to do a wee round down, 5 minutes, going around everyone.
Jews. Jews wrote the Septuagint.
Okay, Jews wrote the Septuagint. If anyone wants to set up a stream to keep this conversation going, that's grand. I sort of want to run around. I've been off for like 5 days straight. I have to go fucking back to work. And now it is actually 1 o'clock in the morning. So
I mean, I can do it on my channel if you guys want to, but
perfect. There you go. Zach's putting it down. Is everyone happy to move over to Zach's? We can give Zach a couple of minutes, set up a stream.
Yeah. You down, dude?
Yeah, maybe I'll come over there.
There you go.
I'll roll a link.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So in that process, Andy, while we're waiting and giving Zach time to do that, is there anything you'd like to shout out?
No, I mean,
give A's
just
philosophy.
other than oh yeah, A's philosophy. Just like the letter A apostrophe S philosophy. He's a YouTube channel. He's an extremely open-minded and logical Christian, and I think that if you're trying to get input from a Christian or get a Christian point of view, that he's a great source.
Andy, if you want,
he's very true to the.
Do a thing, Andy. Do type in the main chat of the YouTube if you could, and I'll give you mods, and then you to post.
Yeah, 1 second. Just type in the.
Yeah, just say hello, and then I've got your name. I can give you mods, and then the second one you can put them.
All right, 1 second. Sorry, I closed out of the YouTube. I'm there.
Just put the invite for you two in the chat.
Awesome. Okay, perfect.
Oh my goodness, Spooky, have you got a live stream happening this Friday?
Yeah, he does.
Is it his birthday?
It's doing a Lemmy statue, I believe it is.
Okay, right. So I know what I'm doing Friday. Right. Spooky, post a link. Anyone hasn't, post a link to your channel, Spooky. Do all that stuff. Also, Q, do that. Say hello in the chat. Somebody, you know. Are you Greta Thunberg?
I just posted my. I have a couple playlists, but that's the playlist for my channel of audiobooks. I have a lot of early church fathers from the Roman times that I recorded. Not AI, just me reading it, and because there's a lot of AI crap out there, which pisses me off. But I've also there's also some like Cicero. I did like Cicero's Philippics. There's some Lucian of Samosata. So it's there's some other ancient stuff as well. I'm actually working on the life of Constantine right now, which are the ones I'm going through that are written in like the 300s. So yeah, it's just a hobby. So yeah, I'll see you all over there.
What is that? Ancient historical audiobook.
Thank you.
Right, subscribe.
Oh yeah,
hit the all.
I'm already subbed.
Go. Right, I've got a nice new channel. Zach, You've got the link set up, I do believe. Is it this console EMVMVQ?
Yeah, that's for the guests. That's for guests. I haven't made the stream yet.
I don't know. That link seems scary. I feel if I click it, someone's going to try and show me their penis.
No, I'm on a thing called EveMux. That's just the invite code for it.
What is that? Who is that behind you?
I'll leave that surprise for when he's on as well. And it's that. I'll be streaming over on. So fuck it. If you want to join us, I'll be over on Shaken Fist right now.
I was gonna join it, but now I'm afraid to. Someone might show me.
No,
their
it's
penis.
amazing. It's amazing. It's a religion I'm starting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm already a member of Bedhernism. I cannot. It is.
But the light of Sir David Attenborough invites you to come and enjoy his Lord's
all
splendor
hail
and beauty
spooky
of what he's made.
Bedher. All hail spooky Bedher. Sorry. Started the internet. Did you not know this? This started the internet.
All hail Attenborough.
Anyway, yeah, I think we've all done our bits and bobs, and everybody shared their bit. Yeah. And if you click that link, then apparently you'll get to see other penises.
All right.
I'm gonna put that over there and then minimize it because.
Well, no, that's not for everyone. That's just for the two people in here if they're coming over.
I'll probably come over for a wee while. I just don't want to be in charge and then kick everyone out. I'd like the ability to leave when it gets boring, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway, yeah. If you want to Shaken Fist, I do believe GeoSam has put your link in the chat. I've also shared. Kelvy, QE, I know we always talk, but like, what do you prefer to go by?
Oh, you can just do Kelvy.
Kelvy, okay. I've also put Kelvy's playlist in the chat. That's what they shared in the private chat, so you'll get their link from them. And if you're already subscribed, and yeah.
If they're listening, it's the Christian Sodium channel. I bring in.
Yeah, notice that.
Coming over as well, Kelvy.
I love your channel, by the way.
Appreciate it.
Dog, I'm thinking of getting another wee dog. Like, I'm thinking of getting a wee ginger dog. I don't know. I'm waiting to come back from holiday. Amsterdam. Yeah, Zach. Flights are cheap at the minute. Flights are super cheap. €13, which is like fucking £12.
Dude, I've not been paid since 2020. It ain't happening.
I fucking throw you a tenner. You have to find £2.
My immigration says I can't. I can't leave the country.
Oh, your immigration, right? Okay, ending stream now. It's getting real. Okay, bye bye, everybody.